It is Thursday, May 9th, 2019. It is 4:37, and we are starting our affiliation workshop study agenda. And I call this to order. Do you have a roll call, please?
President Norris?
Here.
Vice President Herron?
Here.
Secretary Spikers?
He's not here. Haven't heard from him.
And Commissioner Pollard?
Here. What are these? To be passed out?
No, you can have them if you want one. Actually, that's a whole project.
Oh, that's the interstate project.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving along on our agenda, which I made a motion that we approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Where is the agenda?
Right there, the front one. You're looking at it right there. I know.
That's all there is to it?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
All right.
So do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. We're going. We're on. Okay. Do I roll call?
She did it.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
We do that downstairs.
So we don't have to do that here? All right, then.
Do you want me to grab it and take the first one?
Yes, I think you can do that.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, for the work study, we talked about last time trying to have a really consistent so that every single time the agenda really looks the same, so that we hit every single one of these items. These are kind of the big buckets, the bucket around affiliation and the work that's going on there. So sometimes we'll camp out in one of the agenda items more than others, but we'll try and say something about every single one of the items each time we come together. I have a slide up here that we put together. I know last time when we had this meeting, Brian was here, Brian Bauer from Wall Render, and really took that opportunity to introduce that very complex, or very detailed, probably not so much complex, but very detailed timeline, and it was almost all in red, if you remember that visual. Yeah. And so that still is kind of the master document that we use to reference, but it had a lot of details underneath it that makes it really hard to reference and look at on a day-to-day basis. So we've kind of created something that is a little more visually appealing, simple, for lack of a better term, and manageable. So my intention is to kind of keep it up here. And then at the very end of today, I am going to ask your thoughts on if there's anything about this that you would like to see differently. But if it's okay that we can go through the whole meeting so that as time goes along, you see how valuable it is or isn't, or what it misses. But as you see, we've got the different sections up there that are kind of color-coded. So if we start at the very first one, which is due diligence, so that's item number 1. So where we are on that, it has begun. So here we are in May, and that work has begun. It's anticipated to go through at least August.
I'm not seeing that page.
So you moved it up there, and you said no.
I don't see that page. What page is
No,
that?
it's the first one.
I don't have it.
One page. The one page.
Right here on the bottom.
Oh, that's why I couldn't see it. Okay, thank you.
There you go.
All right.
Emma, were you asking something?
Yes, you have answered no.
Yeah.
What was the original date to present the clean room status or something?
So it's not, we're jumping ahead, but I'm glad to jump in.
Never mind, I won't ask any questions. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's not because we are still waiting for information from them, from Overlake. So I'll just jump right on into the update. So all of our documents are available to them. They are in active review right now. So Overlake has them. They're touching them. They are giving us some feedback. They're asking for clarification and additional information. And so ongoing dialogue. So that's our evidence that it is in their hands. We're still waiting for information from them. You know, we sent them a list of information that we wanted. And it has been deposited in their clean room. And just a quick reminder, the clean room means that their attorney is looking through it and making sure that there's nothing in that information that would position them or any of us to be holding secrets of one another. so anti-trade secrets. So once he does that scour, it'll be released to us. So Overlake they've submitted, waiting for the clean room release, and then we'll have ours. All of our information already went through our clean room and was
So
released.
once he has done that, who is he there?
It's their attorney. His
Their
name is
attorney,
yeah.
okay.
His name is Don.
So really what you're saying here is you have to look up, it says on track. It's not as if anything here is finished, but it's on track.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right. And so I declared it to not be on track because our intention was that both us and Overlake would already be able to be in the review process, and we are not in the review process yet because we don't have information in hand. So that's what all of that means.
No, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
And that was the original due date was to August, or did you move it? I guess that was my question earlier.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Through August. Yes. And you used the word due dates, and probably due. It's more about we anticipate it to last this long.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
We anticipate it to start and to last this long, as opposed to having
Due dates.
dates around it.
Okay.
Yeah. Too much. Any questions on the due diligence piece? The next one then, just heading downward, is the definitive agreement development. And you will see that bondholders has a placeholder at the very end of that definitive agreement development line up here. And so I know there was so much information that was given to you all last time, so that's why I thought I would revisit some of the highlights as we go through here. So if you remember, one of the bridges that we're going to have to cross is getting the bondholders to agree that having Overlake as a backer of NewCo is satisfactory to them. Because in the documents, in our bond documents, what's that called? Bond trust?
Covenants.
Bond covenants. It says that if we transfer ownership or transfer operations to another entity, that entity needs to be rated, bond rated. They need to be a rated entity in order to have the more favorable covenants in place. So it is of everybody's interest for NewCo to be seen as that NewCo is not rated. Overlake is rated, but Overlake will be the backer of NewCo, or NewCo is a subsidiary of Overlake. There will be a time that we need to get the bondholders to agree to that, to say, yes, that is consistent with the intentions of the trust documents.
How long does it take to get rated? NewCo, for example.
Yeah.
Steve would be better to answer that.
It would take a number of months in the process to get rated. To add on, by the bondholders, can we talk about the revenue bondholders, not our tax-based bondholders?
Not any of the other bondholders.
No, because there are
LT.
documents and requirements specifically in our revenue bond documents. And seems like I had some. There are 5 major bondholders that will need to approve. So it's not like thousands. It's 5 mutual funds that hold the majority of our revenue backlog.
Now, until we get that, does the process stop?
No. We are going to continue to communicate with the revenue bondholders on what is going on. What they will want to see is the definitive agreement and all the details, and then look at that and say, okay, does this meet the bond covenants? And if not, would they approve deviations?
But can we go on to trust agreement without
Yes.
the bondholders?
Yeah.
In fact, we will need to. The reason why the bondholders piece is placed kind of there at the tail end like it is we really need to have the whole product ready to present to them. And so that is both the definitive agreement and the trust agreement. Both of those will need to be done before we petition for the bondholders to agree. They are not going to be interested in hearing anything that doesn't have a well thought out, the clear, definitive plan that everyone has agreed to. And so that's the reason why the trust agreement is longitudinally located in the midst of the definitive agreement, because getting started on the definitive agreement is necessary to inform the trust agreement. The way we work our way through the trust agreement is necessary to finish the definitive agreement. So they very much are tied into one another, and both of them inform what we present to the bondholders and what will influence their decision.
And of course, we will have extensive education for you on these agreements and what they mean, what the details are, and what the implications are.
It may take more than once.
Oh, yeah, that's why I said extensive.
Yeah.
There may have to be
Yeah.
clarification as we go on.
Again, the reason why we're trying to make sure everything looks the same
Yeah.
month after month, so that it's familiar territory, because there's going to be just enormous amounts of information
I believe
for us
that.
all to layer on top of what we talked about the last time.
So where is that definitive agreement development sitting right now? Who's got that when you say yes? Do we have it?
So yes, it's on track because the skeleton is developed so far.
Mhm.
So no, we are not the originators of
Yeah,
it.
they were
Overlake is
OVH.
doing it. So it is not yet ready for our response.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But
So
it's
the
on track.
bondholders will not be interested in the next step, the land building leases developed?
And we're
Probably
still on
not.
number 2.
Probably not. I think it will be sufficiently delineated in the definitive agreement. I'm going to say strongly probably not, but we may end up. Strongly probably not.
Use that.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the land and building leases are going to be developed based on what's written in the definitive agreement. There should not be anything novel or original in there.
What does the word assignments mean out there to the right?
Okay, just jump onto that one. That is all of those things that we transfer. So all of the leases that we have, the lease that we have on equipment, and the service contracts that we have, those will be assigned. You know how in a contract it says it is or isn't assignable? And that's what we'll be doing, the assigning. The contracts that we have with providers will be assigned.
Have we gone as far as we can with the equipment that we have to make sure that everything possible can be assigned?
Mm-hmm. And we've reviewed them, and we've given actually overlay copies of those agreements too, so they can have a comfort level with that.
Any questions? All righty. The definitive, what's that? So the definitive agreement, this is actually where I wanted to spend more time tonight, camping there, and it's going through the market analysis that was done for us in 2017. And the reason why we thought it would be a good thing for us to do is because this market analysis is what gives us some insight into the value of what we have on offer. So I think it's having really good insight into that value of what it is that we have is necessary to make sure that we're representing ourselves well when we go into the definitive agreement.
What year did you say
development.
for that?
2017.
Was that the offer of the revenue bonds? Is that what we're
No,
talking about?
it was actually constructed as part of the very first conversations with Astria. That is in timing. That was the timing when it was put together. But it's still in our possession and it's still valuable information.
It's still current, huh? It's still current.
It's 2017, so
Yeah.
it was early 2017. So I still think we can get quite a lot of information out of it. Yeah.
What is the appealing thing in that market assessment? in 2017?
We're going to go through it.
Oh, I'm going too fast.
You
Sorry.
are. But you're setting
Sorry.
up really, really good segues,
Okay.
is what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
But can I pause to ask, do you all want to jump into that right now, or do you want to go through these other things and then wrap up? Have the market assessment, I don't know how
I would
your
like to
minds
get-
will go
well,
smoothest.
I think that's important to,
Do you want to stay on agenda, Jerry?
Stay on the agenda.
It's not up to me, I think it's up to the group,
To-
what works
to-
best
to
for
all.
us as a whole.
We like to
I
look
think
at,
it makes sense to go through these quickly.
okay.
That gives us a skeleton, and then we can fill in the meat.
Yeah.
That's fine, okay. So land and building leases, we had a conversation about that already. I didn't say whether we were on track or not. I didn't answer yes or no because it just hasn't started yet. It's still not
Yeah.
time. The lease transferences, which is the assignments, I should create language that's consistent there. None of that can occur until after the certificate of need is resolved. So there's a little bit of work that we can do to prep it, but it is far too early to even expend time. Our time is better spent doing other things right now.
Has the Department of Health given you an estimate on how long that certificate of need will take?
The most recent update that we got was somewhere in the 6 to 12 month. So last time when Steve and I checked, we were told 15 to 18 months. But they checked it recently and they were told 6 to 9 months. So it feels like it's a moving target actually. So we'll be prepared for.
So the assignments have to wait
They have
6
to
to 12 months?
Yes, they are. Yes, yeah. So that's the very last column there is deceiving because we've gone month by month in the columns, and all of a sudden that very last column is all of 2020 because it's just whenever those 6, 12, 15 months pass, whatever it turns out to be until we get to that CON approval piece. The application for the CON, which is the orange bar on the left, the timing of that is within the 30 days. You can do it as soon as 30 days before definitive agreement is signed. So you do have to be cautious that you don't prematurely do it because you'll have to redo all the work again.
Uh-oh.
Because if the 30 days have passed and the definitive agreement hasn't been signed, then you go back, back to go. So that's what that indicates there. One thing to bring up here is House Bill 1607, because that also falls in the Certificate of Need application line because it's similar.
What is it called, which
so-
House bill?
Yep, 1607. So House Bill 1607, it's on the governor's desk. He hasn't signed it yet, but there's no indication that I can see, and I'll look to Skip to see if he has heard any indication that it won't be signed. I think it's just a matter of the governor hasn't been home.
He's home, but he's
Okay.
signing more important bills like gun rights and
I-
orca whale protection.
I agree
It's
with
lower
that.
on his priority, but there's no message and there was no opposition other than the one speaker. Also, the lawsuit was settled, as you all saw, and so I think they might have wanted to wait for that to kind of leave the press so that when this next bill gets signed, he can.
What
Sign
lawsuit
it.
is that?
That was the lawsuit that resulted in this type of legislation in terms of, I'm trying to remember the hospital name.
CHI Franciscan.
CHI Franciscan.
St. Anthony.
He also signed the Philippine History Month for October
He did.
last Monday.
So that
Those are the more
lawsuit
important
was
things.
pending and settled on April 29, and with that, the AG had also requested legislation that would allow the Attorney General's office now to review the transfer or affiliations of a certain threshold, and it was a fairly low threshold. There was not a whole lot of opposition to that, unfortunately, including the Washington State Hospital Association took a neutral position and never testified or appeared in any hearings. So that's where it's at right now, sitting on the governor's desk. It's been signed by the Senate and the House.
Now, what that bill would do, or what that law would do, would be to require a review of the proposed affiliation or merger.
Correct.
By whom? Is
The
it
Attorney
Secretary of
General's
State?
office.
By the Attorney General.
The Attorney General.
Yeah. And they've never done it before, and they're going to have to create an approach and a team and a process
And knowledge to
and
do it.
knowledge. The first one obviously going to take some time. That bill would not take effect for the review of the Attorney General until January 1, 2020. So even though the bill will be passed by the governor and take effect 90 days after signing, the review of the Attorney General, according to the bill, will not take effect until January 1, 2020.
So
There's
we
some-
will
That's
start.
January 1 coming up.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the January coming up.
How far along would we have to be in this process?
That's a good question.
You would
hope-
say that if you don't have your certificate of need signed by the state, then you're subject to this new law.
Potentially, because it hasn't been really defined as to where you could be in the process that would trigger the Attorney General's review. So Brian's going to look into that, and we'll obviously see what happens when the bill gets signed and look into that. But that's even more of a reason to stay on track and try
Do we
to
need to make noises over there?
make noises. Maybe.
That's how some of the
It's
groups
like
that
you
wait and
like
see.
to go
Staying
down
under
there
the radar,
again.
maybe
I know,
the right
there-
thing.
that's
Under the
how,
radar,
there was a lot of
So
people of
what's-
us
what's
when we were signing the
unclear
bill for
is-
American History Month.
Is it the definitive agreement being signed or the certificate of need being approved? Which of those is the event before January 1st, 2020 that says you do or don't have to go to the AG?
And as I recall, there's nothing in the law that specifies that.
The new bill doesn't say. It just says when the
I should
deal
say
is
bill
done.
or
Or,
something.
yeah,
A copy of it.
yeah, I do.
She came prepared.
I just have to find that section.
Will the
Maybe
Attorney
send it over to
General
Skip
likely
and let him
then
sign it.
interpret the law as to when that goes into effect? Is that who is likely to identify the point at which this goes into effect in terms of the processes?
I don't know who would
Well,
make that interpretation.
The Attorney General is obviously entitled to his interpretation, as is anyone else who would be impacted by the bill. Ultimately, the interpretation is made by the court.
By the court?
By the court.
Because we should follow now.
Unfortunately, that's where you get your definitive
Right.
interpretations.
If it
So
goes
just
to
about
court, then
everything.
Yeah, okay.
And it goes to court.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll look through it. I'll have this. You guys can, if anybody wants to read through it. I'm not fast enough finding that exact wording.
Do
you want to look at it?
Sure.
That wording that says what has to happen by January 1, 2020.
That would be good to know.
So I don't think,
Be good to know.
yeah, Brian and Skip
Yeah.
have both said that this isn't worrisome. It's just one more hoop on the
That
along
we
the
have
way.
to jump through.
Is there any way we could get an advisory opinion with that question from the Attorney General? In other words, we could ask now whether they have
An elected
thought that
official,
out.
you'd ask your representative to submit and ask for an Attorney General opinion.
Yeah.
You could also ask for an informal Attorney General opinion, though, just as it. So the definitive language here says, if there's a notice of material change not less than 60 days prior to the effective date of any transaction, so that's kind of critical, any transaction could be the definitive agreement, I think, that results in a material change, the parties to the transaction shall submit written notice to the Attorney General of such material change. And so for the purposes of a material change, it includes a merger, acquisition, or contracting affiliation between two or more entities of hospitals, hospital systems, or provider organizations. So I think you could say that we entered into this material change through the definitive agreement, and therefore the law hadn't taken effect until January 1, 2020, and so we don't
So
have
we're
to give them
good.
60 days notice. Correct.
But
That's
you're
not-
saying that the CON must be signed 30 days before the definitive agreement.
Oh, I'm
Or
sorry.
rather,
The CON application
must be.
can be made no sooner than 30 days before the definitive agreement is signed. It's just an interesting nuance that the 30 days is only about telling the certificate of need department that we plan on
Okay,
submitting for a certificate of need review.
all right.
I suspect in writing.
Oh, yes, yes.
Shouldn't it also be interpreted that the certificate of need has to be issued
And
before this takes
I think that
effect?
each of us that have read it, think that it's a definitive agreement, but I think you're right. Somebody else might say, oh, no, it's certificate of need.
It uses
So that's
the
why
word
we have to figure out.
transaction. And
It does.
transaction doesn't sound like a certificate of need, but
That sounds more like a bus.
Well, even if you look in the certificate of need language, they talk about the transaction triggers the certificate of need. But I think we do. I'm sure us and many others are going to be asking the AG to give us.
there's not a whole lot of legislative history. Sometimes there's a lot of legislative history, and I forwarded to Dr. Whitcomb the House bill report and staff reports. And it's pretty bare bones. It was an Attorney General's request after they filed this lawsuit, so that they want to be involved now in reviewing hospital affiliations and transactions. And they've never done it before, and I'm sure they don't know how to do
So
it.
what gives them the power to just say, we think we need to be involved?
Well, they're an elected official statewide. He has the authority and ability to go to the legislature, which was called agency-sponsored legislation.
Okay.
Found a couple sponsors. They
Yeah.
ran it. It passed the committee.
Okay,
It passed the House. It passed the Senate. Therefore, he's now been
It's done.
promulgated by the legislature
To do it.
to do it, unless the governor vetoes it.
Now, ostensibly, correct me if I'm wrong, Skip, but ostensibly, it's to make sure that we're not reducing competition
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right.
by the hospital.
That was the big
In
fear.
other words,
Right.
we're a little 25-bed hospital.
Right.
That's probably not going to affect competition, even in this area. But if you had, let's say, Virginia Mason and Overlake were to merge, that's totally different. That would be an impact on the market.
That's more the certificate of need process that gets that.
But isn't it
But
also this?
one, yeah, and this one was prompted by CHI Franciscans coming in and not only buying the hospital, building the hospital, but buying medical practices around it. And now they represent the only medical providers in the area, and the prices went up.
Sounds a lot like Astria.
Well, I think
They took up all the.
Well, the other problem
area.
in the lawsuit is they had emails where they talked about we'll be able to keep the prices up and higher.
Yes, we did.
And when the Attorney General saw emails that were that damning and damaging, they were pretty concerned. And so there was, substantial millions and millions of dollars of refunds are going to be forthcoming and money set aside.
So we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll see. And I do know the attorney, Overlake's attorney, is also watching this, and he's been right on it all along. And I think he also may have some informal connections into the AG's office, and maybe he'll leverage those. So, and we can get an opinion that way.
I wonder if there are any or how many other mergers are at the point that we are affiliations. We may be the only one.
I'd like to know
But there
too.
could be others
Yeah.
impacted by this.
I don't know. I know others that are seeking it, but I know we're farther than they are in the process. Do you think of anybody right offhand?
I cannot, but that's a good question to maybe ask next collaborative meeting.
Yeah, maybe somebody in their
Yeah, to see if
area.
there's any word out there. So.
maybe it's time to pay him a visit. I know his wife. He's with me. Whose wife?
All right, the AG.
Ferguson.
All right.
He goes to our
Any-
meeting.
Are you ready to jump into the market analysis?
I am.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was confessing. He said it's going to go over. Oh, okay.
Okay, so fire hose of information here. So just, if you remember, there's a ton here. And just a reminder, this was prepared by a company called Health Facilities Planning. If you ever hear us talk about Jody Corona, this is her business.
Oh, right here. Health Facilities Planning and Development.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I mostly bring it up so that you realize this is a third party, well-respected around the whole stage for their work.
Is it local?
Yeah, she's, I can't remember where offices are.
I mean,
Right.
Oh, okay.
West Seattle? I can remember where she
Somewhere.
is. Yeah, somewhere in the South Seattle area. But she works all over the
She works
state.
regionally and nationally.
Very familiar with that.
Very well known.
You may recall she gave us advice during the Astria.
Oh,
motion
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
Frequent flyer with a lot of hospitals.
Yeah. So just, like I said, a lot of information here, and you've got it to take with you to digest. But it's this. I'm doing this really to remind us again what it is that we have in our possession, both now and what's anticipated to occur over these next 10 years, because I think that's really where the value proposition is. So here's Jody's team talking about the first set of measures that she did was around acute admissions. So just remember, we've got to keep separate from our swing bed admissions. But this is about acute patients. So for our acute patients, 80% of them come from within the boundaries of the district. Now here she says 77% of them are from the three zip codes, which are North Bend, Snoqualmie, and Falls City. In her world, there is this concept called your primary service area, and that's defined as where 75% of your business comes from. So from this point onwards, you'll see references made to the primary service area. And so for us, the primary services is North Bend, Snoqualmie, and Falls City. It does not mean that we're ignoring the fact that our district is bigger than that, but just when she makes reference. Are you without a pen?
No, I got it.
Okay, because I will let
I
you.
was trying to put this back
prepare it.
together. But I'm puzzled at the inclusion of Preston. I realize that's not the primary service area, but I think that elsewhere our district has been identified, or rather defined, as including North Bend, Snoqualmie, Falls City, Coronation.
And Preston. So you
And
see,
Preston is in another district.
No.
It is in.
No.
I'm sorry, not Preston. I'm thinking of
I think of Duval.
Duval.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
we mention Duval in here?
No.
Oh, good.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, you're right
They're
about
outside.
Duval, though. And I think I see that with the Snoqualmie Valley Network. It goes all the way to Duval
Yes.
versus the hospital district, but it does. So, and that's right up to the Snohomish County.
The
Fine.
one thing that you won't see mentioned by name here as being part of our district is a reference to Snoqualmie Pass.
Yes.
Because it's kind of hard to define, because the community of Snoqualmie Pass kind of
Like
crosses the
goes
county
down.
lines. Well,
Kittitas County.
It's part King County and part
Kittitas.
Kittitas County. So that's the reason. Just to stay clean and keep the confusion out of what's already hard. You don't see it mentioned by name.
But in our revenue bonds, I think we did mention pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the other side. It's just after you go by all the ski stuff and everything, there's a sign that says Kittitas County.
Correct. But there's a part of it that's in King County. That's in
Oh,
our
yes,
district.
yes.
Yeah.
It's past
And
partial.
it's okay. The purpose of this really is not there is just for us to talk about common language and where the information came from. So it's,
Good clarification.
but she'll keep referring to the PSA, to your PSA, and that's what that's about, is where it is that we draw more than 75% of our acute inpatient population. So that's just, it's a consensus definition.
Now, don't we get referrals from, let's say, even Overlake and Evergreen and also Swedish that are higher than these numbers?
So that we'll get to that. This is only about the acute admissions.
Not
But don't we also, I understand
Yes,
most
we
of our referrals are for swing, but don't we also get referrals for acute from these other hospitals?
No, if we're referring from the other hospital, their acute admission has occurred at the other hospital, and they'll always be coming here for swing.
Right.
So this is kind of the conversation that we just had,
Yes.
which is the map and where those are. So again, just perspective. We just started talking about acute admissions, and that's kind of the least of what we do. We do, our volume is actually elsewhere. So here she is calling out the other things that we do. Now, I did have, she delivered this in a form that I could manipulate, and so Emma was asking earlier, up through 2016, I've inserted 2018 just for our view, so for up-to-date information. But yeah, just so it's there, but just so you know, I just added that in just now. But you see,
No 17.
I just didn't go to the energy of doing it.
Okay.
I skipped it. She did
You're
through
getting us
16.
ahead of
She
that.
did through 16, and it was really easy to go to 18. I would have had to dug 17
I
out.
want to see that 28.
So I just wanted to jump ahead and see where we're right now. So
we are now.
recent information. And then the call-outs of the far right-hand column are the things that she was calling out of where we really have had growth from 2014 until.
So like emergency
16.
part, when she does emergency department with the green plus sign,
Yeah.
that's growth.
That's growth.
The -2 is negative, what we were before.
Correct.
Got it.
Shrinkage.
Yeah.
Shrinkage. So the bold green is around emergency department visits, endoscopy procedures, and outpatient rehab clinic. Those numbers, again, are until 2016. I'm the one who inserted 18, so they aren't part of the calculation. Are you thinking something?
Well, we're comparing it back to 2014. I think the more significant figure is, for example, under outpatient rehab clinic 2016, we had 11,000. In 2018, we had 7,000. That's a stark decline.
And look at the outpatient.
And so I think maybe by using the figure, attaching these to 2014, it's a little misleading.
So
Yeah,
again, what we're doing is just resurrecting work that was done in early 2017. We've already spent the money on this. And there's not a great need right now to redo all of this work. The information is still pretty much the same.
No, but from the standpoint of the board, which sets policy, the board should look hard at what happened to our outpatient rehab business. If
right.
it's dropped from 11,000 in 2016 to 7,500 in 2018, there's something that needs to be looked at.
The finance committee has been very involved with that.
You recall, we've been talking about that for the last 6 months and actually seen
more than 6 months.
More than 6 months, probably. And we have seen that start to come back as we.
But that's a topic we should probably just visit later. I think it's a legitimate topic.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's plus 12%, even if you are looking at the number is average. So it will still show a plus instead of a minus on that outpatient rehab. It's a plus 12%.
Well, yes, it's plus from 2014. My
No,
only point is
from
it's
2016.
a minus since 2016.
That's correct.
Right.
So just
From
just
2014.
remember the 18 I just stuck in so that you would now have some additional information. That's I've inserted it. Everything else on the display, ignore your 2018 data. There. So again, as we go into into the conversations for definitive agreement and trust agreement development, these are things that we're going to want to pull out of what is of value in our organization. This slide is far from the contributor to that conversation, so let's just keep moving forward. This is just setting the scene still of where we are, and then we still live in a community of growth. So the population here in our PSA grew by a little over 14%. So from 2020 to 2016, it grew more than 14%. It is expected to grow another 21% by 2026.
Now, are those already things that the city of Snoqualmie and North Bend and the powers that be out here have already gotten permitting and know that land's going to be developed for homes and stuff? Is that not what you're talking for population?
No. This is about population growth, not
Yes.
necessarily land growth.
But you're not going to get the population unless you have housing, right?
Yes, and that's why you'll see so much multifamily
Yes.
housing
Yeah.
units
Yeah.
going up,
Yeah.
and most of that growth is going to be in North Bend. And so North Bend has 4 pretty significant building projects planned over the course of these next 2 or 3 years. A lot of them are multifamily, dense developments.
Okay.
So you're asking
the
about
growth
that,
is going-
so that's where
Yeah, that's
that
what I'm
growth is
thinking
gonna
about, the
occur.
housing, and that it's going to change.
Right.
Yes.
How does unincorporated King County areas fit into these primary service areas?
They do fit into it. This is
So when you
not.
say Snoqualmie, we're talking about incorporated
Yeah,
as well as unincorporated.
Without regard for incorporation. So the map here is the PSA area, and so kind of in your mind, you can almost see where the incorporated lines are in there, and so they're, it just
Well,
doesn't
the reason
matter.
I ask is because when we went out with the revenue bonds, as I recall, we were quoting a figure of about 48,000 for the population of the district. And if that is correct, then I don't know where you get this, that it's going to grow by 21% to 44,000, because I think that the specifications that were written up for the revenue bonds were that we were at 48,000.
So difference here, stick with the PSA, which is just Snoqualmie, North Bend, and Falls City.
And the unincorporated areas around
The district
Yeah.
is bigger, and so the revenue bonds would have been referencing the district.
Well, the district is bigger because of the unincorporated area, which now you tell me is included with the primary service areas.
There's areas of North Bend that are considered North Bend, but they're unincorporated.
Yeah,
But they're still part of the North Bend zip code.
yeah.
So that the PSA is set up by zip code, not by whether you're living
Oh,
in
that's
Oh,
trouble.
city,
That's
city
trouble.
incorporated or
There are
unincorporated.
areas around North Bend that have a different zip code. Is that what you're
No, I'm saying they all have the same
Same zip-
98045 zip
codes.
code that applies to both incorporated and unincorporated. All of this is done by zip code data.
saying? Okay, well, that's my very point. I don't know. We quoted 48,000 when we sold the bonds.
The number 48,000 includes Carnation and Preston. The 44,000 does not include Carnation and Preston. So a little bit of a difference in the area they were looking at. The revenue bond included our entire district, which included Carnation and Preston. What you just saw quoted at 44 does not include our primary service area, which is different from our entire district.
As I recall, some of the folks in, I don't know about Preston, but in Carnation were a little bit unhappy that they were not considered when we put out our revenue bonds as part of the primary service area.
Primary service area is a statistical definition. So it's not a representation of favor. It's just a representation of where does 75% of your business come from. So I'll flip back to that. Right here. So the 3 here make up, we go across the 75% mark there. And Carnation and Preston do not contribute that much. It doesn't mean they're not part of the district. It just means in the analysis that is done in this world, in this
Probably lower population, lower density.
it really just has to do with who comes, who actually comes to us, and where do we get our business. That's what defines your primary service area.
Okay,
all
that's
right.
clear.
But it's not restricting who you care for. It's just a language,
Okay.
just a
All right,
language.
moving right along.
It's an artificial surrogate number that you use to create a statistic.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Just a tool. It's just a tool.
Dr. Wickoff can slice and dice this different ways.
Yeah.
That could be a problem
I
sometimes.
like to not.
Yeah.
I like to not.
Okay.
But here's the other piece that was captured as she did this analysis, is that our primary service area is on the young side.
I would expect that.
So right now, in their youthfulness, they're not using that many hospital services because hospital service usage tends to increase as we age as a population. So we have a population right now that looks like they don't use the hospital, but they, in the next 10 years, are going to be in that age where they do use services. So the combination of growing, and the growth is anticipated to happen more in the older group. So as people move in, probably youthfulness will not be what moves in. Higher average will move in.
Not only that, but the dependence of some of the younger people.
Yes.
Mother-in-law is going to come and live with us, etc.
We're seeing a lot of that. No, that we haven't overlooked it. That is exactly what's happening. We see a fair amount of that, where you'll see the aging parents, and many of the homes here, at least here on the Ridge, are built to accommodate that.
Right.
Yeah, they're built to have generations living together. So that's going to contribute to this. So again, these are things in our pocket.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the future of Snoqualmie.
It
is.
Of course, the problem may take care of itself because they're reporting now that longevity in America is declining.
We'll probably all be out of this picture by then.
Yeah.
We'll get them set up.
Okay.
This conversation is back to acute hospitalizations.
Okay.
As opposed to sling and.
Yes, this is just about acute hospitalizations. So if you take a look at our PSA, our primary service area, and the question is just answered, how many people who have a zip code in our primary service area are in an acute care hospital on any given day? That's what this question is. And the answer is 25.7. And if you expand the PSA out to the entire district, which is a conversation Mr. Pollard was just saying, it's our whole district, that is 33.1. So just right now being when this was done in 2017. So that means 9,400 patient days, and you guys know how we're always watching patient days. That's part of how we
especially
measure.
in the finance
Yeah,
department.
that's how we're measuring, our bottom line. So the next.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, the third paragraph is what's critical. Snoqualmie Valley Hospital's 3-year market share of PSA residents was 2%.
Yes.
Now, that's very low.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, when I did a study of this several years ago, I found out that we were operating at the rate of about 1.5 to 4 inpatients, critical access, or rather acute care patients in the hospital, which made it seem strange that the state allowed us to designate ourselves as a critical access, or rather a necessary provider. Because we were only operating at 1.5 to 4 patients in the hospital.
And our average daily census was higher than some other hospitals in the state.
Yeah.
I know, it's hard to have to wrap your brain around. But you're exactly right. You're tapping on that we haven't even started to capture the market share here ourselves. And that's where we talk about the opportunity with a different branding on the outside. That can make a big difference.
Well, branding's part of it, but we've got to have the services. The reason they go to Swedish and Overlake and Evergreen is they have the services. We don't have them.
I think that might be making a presumption that that's the reason people are going elsewhere.
Yeah, it's an assumption or a presumption.
Yeah,
But that's certainly a factor. If you look at the services provided by any of those hospitals, I mean, the list is a mile long. And you look at the services provided by our hospital, and it's very short.
it is. So that's what this slide is about. So if you look at the top 3 over there of the reason people are hospitalized, so people who live in our PSA, who are being hospitalized, so an acute hospitalization, these are their top 3 reasons. And the very first one, general medicine, that is what we do.
Yeah.
That is what we do. And then what you were talking about, Mr. Pollard, the list of the other things that the other hospitals do, that is correct. Those are the things that other hospitals
We
do.
don't do OB delivery, and we
Correct.
probably never will. And that's my
Oh,
opinion.
wait, you've got to be careful. David Spiker's wife was born at Nels.
But he's talking about what we do here.
Oh,
Yeah,
We don't
And
have an OB
orthopedics
service line.
is interesting because this is where Overlake is not one of the top 5 hospitals in the Puget Sound according to recent polling and statistics.
Depending on.
But where they are high performing is knee and hip surgery. That's where they're high
They
performing.
are high performing.
And our people go to these larger hospitals for that service.
That's true.
So, seeing that in our primary service area, the reason they are admitted is those top 3 reasons, and one of them, the very first one, is one of the things we do. And that's when I gave you a little pushback when you said they're going because the services that they need are elsewhere. But the services of everybody lower in that list is definitely elsewhere.
Yeah, I think
the cardiac surgery and the cardiology and the neurosciences, that's absolutely
it's almost
true.
difficult to really compare apples and oranges because Swedish is a full-line service hospital. So the 3 that we're doing well, I think that's where we would look at the comparison of the services that we are delivering.
Yes, so pause and ask the question. General medicine, we do those services. We do that.
So it's not 3,
Why
it's
do
1.
they? It's 1, yes,
One
the
of
very
the
first one.
general services.
There's an opportunity for
Yes.
us to capture those and have them come here rather
Right.
than going elsewhere because it's not because they needed something that we don't do.
Yeah.
There was another reason that drove them. They chose to go elsewhere, and that's where we get into they either didn't realize they could do it here. They didn't. They had a trust level or a connectivity with a stickiness that belonged to another brand.
Is there any way to get statistics on general medicine figures for the other hospitals? In other words, those are potential captures for our general medicine business.
Yes, there is. You want to ask your question
Well,
again?
what I mean is like general medicine, this is all hospitals where people from our PSA go for medical care.
Correct.
In any hospital, really, in
In
the
the state of Washington.
in the state. So I'm just wondering, since our focus is on, at this time, it's on general medicine, I'd like to know the figures for general medicine for Overlake and for Swedish and Valley of Monroe, because those are potential capture patients for us in general medicine. I'd just like to know, what would be the statistics in those areas for those hospitals?
I'm not completely understanding your request because you're wanting to know at Overlake how many of their admissions are general medicine versus others?
Yeah.
I think that would be
Just
triggered
like
by.
this breakdown, but I'd like to see it, not for the whole state, but what about Swedish and Overlake and Evergreen, and what is their proportion of general medicine? Because those are patients that we may be able to capture. We're not going to do anything with a lot of these things,
That's
like
correct.
orthopedics and so on.
Some of us want to.
Anyway, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it would just be interesting to know what their figures are in general medicine, because it seems to me that they are mostly specialty services.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I have to find that.
But again, I think that would be population-based, on how many uses this particular facility.
Yeah.
Could you, I don't know if that would be a real accurate number to compare, because the population in our PSA is not as large as population in Bellevue. So the users, the users of that facility may be greater than ours.
Correct.
So that's what I'm just anyway, I'm trying to be
Correct,
more,
correct. Yeah,
trying to be.
this is a reflection of the people that live in our service area. That is
Yeah.
who, the 6,663 at the bottom down there, those are people who live in our service area, and why were they admitted, not where, but why.
Yeah.
So if we were to do this, what percent of admissions to Overlake are general medicine, we couldn't compare it to this because there's
No,
no,
we couldn't compare it.
there's no
It
comparison.
would present us with the opportunity of attracting those patients, it seems to me. Because I have the image of Overlake and Swedish, these are, and Evergreen, these are primarily specialist hospitals, not general. But I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I'd
they'll
like to
have
know
the
if
same-
I am wrong.
You are.
You are wrong.
They'll have the same breakdown because you
Yeah.
Will they have a similar breakdown?
It's unrealistic to really compare.
The percentages will be different because you're right, they have the specialty services, so that dilutes the percentage of general medicine.
Right.
But the general medicine still exists strongly.
Strongly.
Yeah,
Maybe still leading.
strongly there. Yes, yes, definitely still leading. Because think about all the things that any of us around the table would put on the common reasons for hospitalization list. That common is common. So we're all going to say pneumonia, heart failure, volume depletion.
I wouldn't say common.
Well, it's common among people being admitted.
And for an inverted T-way, who does that?
Grapes and grapes.
Well, you were that doesn't mean common, but if you're common.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, making sure I didn't skip anything.
Okay.
This is just talking about the impact of Swedish Issaquah, the opening of Swedish Issaquah had on everybody. So what this is a distribution of
2010 without Swedish?
So this is people who live in our PSA and they have been admitted to the hospital. Where did they go? For not why were they there, but where did they go? So you can see the proportions. That's a lot to digest. But what she's trying to demonstrate is when Swedish Issaquah opened in 2011, we lost market share. Overlake also lost market share.
Well, wait, it says 2010 Snoqualmie Valley 6.3, and opening of Swedish, we went to 6.6. That's an increase, isn't it?
6.8.
Look, keep
Well,
going.
Keep going across.
Oh, well, now you go over to the new hospital and so forth, but if you just compare 2000 and 2011 to get the impact of Swedish, it didn't impact us.
Swedish opened in November of 2011.
Yeah, it was late in the year.
They opened very late in the year.
Late in the year, so it's just not going to have
This one or that?
impact.
That one.
Right here.
We can hand
Well,
you back it down.
everybody's pointing at different chairs. Sorry I'm late. It
Fine.
was kind of difficult trying to get up over here.
There's probably not much more to be extracted from
There's
this
a, do you have
multitude
the
of
numbers for
measures.
20, well, I know you didn't add 2017 or 2018. How does it look now? What's the impact of Swedish?
I don't have
I
those
wonder if
numbers.
that's-
She'd have
oh,
to,
no.
she'd
Oh,
have
I
to
see.
update
Okay.
it.
It would be interesting to see whether they continue to accelerate or dropping down.
Yeah, I think the most relevant would be looking at Overlake. They dropped from 52.5 to 47.7, and Evergreen dropped from 5.7 to 4.9.
Yeah.
Those are more significant.
Yeah, so clearly an impact with another player. But that also says, clearly an impact, it says people are willing to move. So, they don't have, they may not have allegiance that is not, that is immovable.
That's so funny.
That's a project to work on, loyalty.
It's exactly right.
Actually, it's really important in healthcare to stay with the physicians that you can.
Yeah.
We're so mobile that makes it really
That's,
difficult for us.
That's that's far less the nature of healthcare now than it was in years past.
Yes.
It is now very much, it is forced to be flexible and mobile
Yeah,
because of
that's the
if
challenge.
nothing else, then you want the patient desires to be loyal, but their insurance coverage
Yeah.
forces it.
Right, exactly.
That's just one thing.
But
Yeah.
also we know bright, shiny new places cause change, can draw people.
Challenges
And
of
branding
healthcare.
can change. So again, just realizing we have what we have in our hands. We don't have barriers in front of us. We don't have people who aren't willing to change. They've changed once.
But you wonder how many of these are repeat users or new users.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
are they changing or are they first-time users?
right.
That'd be difficult to carve out too.
Mhm.
We have to pay a lot for that.
I suspect you will.
I was actually a little reluctant to put this up here, and it's only because the she references using Truven data, and this is about outpatient services. Up until this point in time, we've been talking about inpatient, and inpatient data is actually very easy, very accessible.
Reliable.
Yeah,
Very
reliable,
reliable, too, yeah.
accessible. You can work it and such. As soon as you go into the outpatient world, it's hard to get that information. And so Truven has a process, and when you talk to them about it, they will say, this is kind of like the best we have, but don't rely on it a lot. So, that's why I was reluctant to put it up, and I thought, it's still fine. It's the best we have. So let's just treat it as the best we do have, and it's the best anybody has.
I don't really understand some of the outpatient procedures, like if we refer a patient to someone in downtown Snoqualmie or North Bend, do we capture that statistic? Because even though we are making the referral, unless we have some agreement with the person, it's not part of our statistics. Right?
No, I mean we do have dashboards that we keep about where we refer people to that we use for our own purposes, but it would never show up outside of us.
Right.
And so the challenge is information that's available outside of any of us. When the us's are us in Swedish and Overlake and Evergreen and Valley and VM, all of that lives very much inside of worlds. But so looking at this is the best information we have, so let's just see what's there. She was able to piece out that the three biggest outpatient services that we provide are lab tests, physical therapy, and X-ray. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm speaking incorrectly. Those top three, lab, physical therapy, and X-ray, are the top three things that are done by people who live in our PSA. So the colored lines up there, the orange-brown colored lines, are the people who live in our PSA. Those are the top three things that they go have done or that they do in the outpatient world. We actually only capture one of those strongly. The things that we have that's strong is ED imaging and occupational therapy. Interesting. So we coincide with what the people in our community need in our X-rays. That's the only overlap that we have. Otherwise, the things that we do strongly, which is good, we're doing great, but we're not capturing what they do the most of.
Yeah.
So to be able to capture lab and physical therapy would mean that we're starting to we're capturing the strong suits.
Mm-hmm.
In that far right-hand column that says SVH market share, I did some additions, and the stars are my additions. And I added those stars saying those are actually things that the consumer often is the one making the decision about. So an opportunity to connect with it, whether it be through marketing, through some type of a direct-to-consumer market, as opposed to, you see I inserted a couple of notes that says for endoscopy procedures, often that happens whatever the PCP's referral pattern is. The consumer rarely inserts themselves in the decision making. Same thing as echocardiography. The large majority of those have been initiated by a cardiologist, and they do them in their own office. So the consumer, the patient as consumer, never got a chance really to exert their preferences. But all the ones with stars on them are places where the patient as consumer has a chance to jump in.
Yeah.
But it's really just a chance. Because
No,
most
no.
of the people, if they're being referred,
I know, I
the
am.
doctor will make a recommendation.
Not anymore. So truly, you will see the majority of primary care offices will say, it is time, I need you to get a CT scan. Here's the order for it. Here's a couple options of where you can go, but you might want to call around and price it to see how much you're going to have out of pocket for your health
I
insurance.
can tell you UAW does not do that. UAW refers you to other UAW facilities.
Yeah, you're going to see them,
Yeah.
but out
Yeah.
here in your private practice scenario. So if you're UW, if you're Virginia Mason,
Yeah.
if you're
Some of the
any
centers.
large system that has your own, you're going to stay internal. If you're Kaiser, you're always going to stay internal. But if you are clinic that's not associated with the
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
you're rarely going to get involved with some of these decisions because the difference from one patient to the next, their insurance influences their out-of-pocket
What
expense.
would be an example of a clinic not associated with a system? You just mentioned that, right?
Dr. Dorfler's office, Dr. Steele's office,
Private
all the
practitioners.
private practices in Medical Center of Issaquah.
I need to interrupt
Yeah,
here.
that's fine.
That for the record that Commissioner Spikers is here and has been here for the last 15 minutes. So we want everybody to know that he has arrived.
Sorry, I got kids that drive to hockey all the time.
That's okay.
So this May is 6 days a week. Until June comes.
You're a hockey dad.
Well, we want to everybody know you are
Someone
here.
picked them up in Linwood. Like,
I'm sure. That's how.
Yeah, family
Okay.
is a priority.
So I do have a question
Yeah.
on that last slide. I looked at this one, and it has actually results through 2018. So that result is not, we're over 30, we're at 38% ED right now of the market, according to this.
Those are two different forms, though. The one.
This says
You can explain that.
primary care emergency services or outpatient services. It's kind of,
Those are the ones, and that the 38% is the
Or 36.
increase
right.
from 14 to now, whereas this is a market share measure.
Oh, this is the market share.
Yeah.
And David, it's probably worth for you that we predicated this. I'm just saying kind of our whole purpose here of going through this market study is to remind ourselves of what it is that we have in our possession that will contribute next month to,
Contribute next month
to our conversation about trust agreement and definitive agreement, but mostly trust agreement.
Yeah. It puts us in a stronger position if we can argue these statistics.
Yes, I think if we have this in our brain, now we can come and start talking about the trust
What we
agreement
have.
and what we have. Yeah.
Yes. That's a great segue to the next.
Yeah, we're almost at the end, so I apologize, it's a lot, but if I just talk through it, then you can take it and look at it, and we'll bring it back next time. So again, as Juggy says, she projects out, we said the average daily census in 2016 for patients in our service area being admitted to any acute care hospital, right now, 25.6 average daily census. And with the anticipated growth and anticipated aging that will occur by 2026, just by 2026, you already are seeing that increase up, and now you've got over 36 patients a day are admitted to a hospital somewhere. And the majority of those are being admitted for a general medical condition. Just that statistic. So lots of opportunity for growth And again, we're sitting on something that's going to grow, not shrink. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
And then just in addition to that, the last slide was about hospital admissions, acute hospital admissions. Not to forget, other things grow too. Office visits grow, ED visits grow, X-rays, CT scans, ultrasounds. So all of those things will be growing. All right.
Dinner time.
Yeah, good timing.
Good timing.
Remind me what HFPD means.
Yeah, right here.
That's,
Health facilities.
Health facilities.
Down here. Planning and development.
Planning and development project.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a state.
No,
No, it's this individual.
Private business. It's a private business.
Judy Carrillo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Health
now I connect up with Judy Crowell. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
What was the name of her
Health
company?
facilities planning.
Health fact is what we always refer to it as, health fact. Health fact.
Has there been an update on due diligence summary?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to catch you up.
We won't keep it a secret, Dave, I promise.
Can I now just come back to this slide and ask you, I know we just got distracted talking about market data, so I apologize for not asking this question earlier. Just so far, does this feel like that it'll be valuable to return to month after month, or is there something missing or a different display?
You mean of this?
Uh-huh.
I think it keeps us, for me, and I'm just speaking for me, that going through it each time just lets us know how far we've gotten and how much farther we may or may not need to go.
Okay.
That's how I see it. It's just good information to say, is this getting ugly? Is this getting beautiful? Or somewhere in between.
Okay. Okay. And the content that's on there feels okay?
Yeah, and we can
Yeah.
all comment. And I
My
made some
comment
notes.
Just going off of this original sheet that I kept notes.
For December, the month of December, are we reading on something is blank? Are we just taking a break?
Holiday.
So honestly,
November,
the
December.
hope
Yes.
is that we will have definitive agreement signed
By
in
then.
November.
Oh, okay, great. That would be a
Yeah, so that's why
celebratory moment.
there's nothing anticipated
Okay.
to occur, but hopefully November we've got the signature and now the certificate of need process began.
What is the ETA from OHMC?
Anything?
So, that's what we hear. No, you do yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any feedback on this?
I think that it's a very simple
Good start.
form and easy to understand and keep up with.
That's the goal.
But we can ask lots of questions as we go along.
Absolutely.
This is just a graphic to help us
Right.
do that.
And what we'll do is next time, this one is of May 9th, until our next time together is June 4th,
I've got it
something
right
like that.
here.
June something? When? June 13th. So there'll be a fresh slide, but I'll always keep this one in the deck. So we'll always be able to toggle back to what was it last month and look at this one. So we don't lose track.
So the
Okay.
13th, I'm out of hockey.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Now, a
Hockey hack.
Okay, I'll
Stanley
turn it back
Cup
over
is
to you.
over.
Sorry.
I don't even know where my agenda is.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. So, any other discussions before we take a break and dismiss this meeting and get ready for another meeting?
Well, this last page, 26, I'm a little uncomfortable with because while other hospitals are growing also and attracting patients, and of course this is just the demand side, and so maybe that. But we have to remember that we've got stiff competition in this area for
That's right.
increases.
These are this represents the opportunity, and so how much of that can we get?
Yes. and-
But it is the opportunity.
And as we're judging that, we've got to remember that the other hospitals are being very aggressive in capturing patients also. So the opportunity may be there, but the competition may be greater.
And again, that's the conversation that we have as we go into the definitive agreement, is saying with the name brand and the marketing power that comes with a larger facility, this is something that you're going to be able to get. Let's have you.
Can I, I'm sitting here at the middle of the conversation here and a conversation here. Can we dismiss this meeting, conclude it, and you can go ahead and talk while we eat, and then we'll regather to do our regular board meeting?
I have a question that, you want to break for that, and we can.
You can go ahead and talk then, yes.
Okay.
His question was actually
Finance.
on the presentation, so just so you know that.
Yeah.
So is that
He
okay?
wasn't finished with the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it that you
I
need?
think we got it now.
Did you get it? Okay.
It's just that I was pointing out that while the demand is going to increase, our competition is out there very aggressively seeking patients also. And so it is not a one-to-one relationship between increased demand and increased hospital utilization for Snoqualmie Valley. That's all I was trying to say.
Right.
Yep. And I think that's legit.
But that's where you're saying this is not us right now. This is saying as we affiliate with the larger entity that has marketing department, a brand name, a recognition, and a group of people who are allegiant to it, this is where they're going to tap in.
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
I just had a question. I'm looking at this page and comparing it to the ED visits projected by Truven in 2026. According to 2018, we needed 4,000 ED visits in this hospital. And they're projecting only 7,500 for the whole area.
So Truven information is very, treat it very skeptically. It's not a reliable piece of information. They will tell you that because their access to information is very limited.
Thinking 10,000 visits.
Per year. I think that's why I say the minute I start seeing
12 or 15,000 maybe.
the minute Steve and I both start seeing outpatient Truven data, all of a sudden you just start treating it with a lot of skepticism. You just say, okay, let's take it with what it is, and it's not a Truven problem. It's just the fact that access to outpatient information is hard to get.
Yeah,
They had all of this in when we purchased the access to all of these.
This is different than our benchmarking that we use for ourselves.
This isn't us, this is what was done by the consultant, Astria had made. We were somewhat skeptical.
Sorry, I have to be so skeptical with numbers, but it didn't make sense.
No,
You should be skeptical with outpatient data because, again, it is just not available for use to put into the mixers.
I would like to ask if there is a motion for us to conclude this meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there any discussion? A second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, we're adjourned.